Feedback can make or break your game. Even the best mechanics can't save a game if players don't understand what they're looking for or what they can do. In this Unreal Engine 5 mini-series, we're going to create a simple outline of objects that lets players know how they can interact with those objects or items. Along the way, we'll cover clean blueprint practices, actor components, blueprint interfaces, post-process materials, and non-HUD widgets. In this first video, we'll focus on setting up a line trace that only detects specific objects using custom trace channels. My name is Neil with Crustaceous Studios. Let's dive on in. Okay, so here we are inside of Unreal. We are in a generic first-person template here just to be able to start out. Before we get started, let's go ahead and download all the assets that we're going to need. Now this is nice because they're going to be free and they're from FAB. So we're going to head over to the FAB Marketplace. We'll come down here to 3D, then Food and Drink, and then come right over here to where it says Price and check on Only Show Free Products. And this will only give you anything that's free. And the product that we're going to use here is going to be this Food Free Low Poly by ithappy. Now it may not show up for you right away because what you have to do actually is come over here to your filter settings and under mature content say show. I'm not sure entirely why this pack is considered mature. My only guess is that because there's alcohol in it, so technically it has to be labeled as mature. But we're not going to be using those assets, we're just going to be using a couple of these other ones. So go ahead and say add to project. And once that gets downloaded, we can be able to start. So let's go ahead and start a few things here. For our line trace, we're going to need a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a blueprints folder. And then inside that folder, I'm going to create another one. I'm going to call it actor components. And the reason we want to use an actor component is that makes it a lot more modular. And it makes it easier for us to be able to add on to either new characters, or if we need to make any changes to our main character, we don't have to risk losing any of our code or rewriting any of our code, and it's all self-contained. So I'm going to come over here to where it says blueprint class, come down to actor component, and I'm going to call this AC underscore interaction line trace. Now the reason I use AC is for actor component, and that just makes it really searchable and easy to find, and we'll see that happen here in just a minute. So we're going to open this on up, and this is going to look just like your regular blueprint. You're just not going to have a viewport because we don't need an actual viewport here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come off of tick because we want this happening every single frame. We're going to get we're going to do a line trace by channel. We're going to plug that in. Now we need our start and our end location. So we want to start this from our player's camera position, and then we want it to end in X amount of space in front of us wherever that we're looking. There's a couple ways that we can do this. One, we can go ahead and decide to get the player camera manager, and then we can say get the camera location, and then that works for our starting location. And then we can also say get the forward vector and multiply this by a float. We'll say, let's just do 500. But we want to then add this together from here and then put this into here. So this works for us. And if we were to attach this to our first person character, we'll see that our line trace is coming out. Let's actually make sure that this is set to persistent. Or we'll do for duration, and we'll set this to 0.1. We'll do 0.3, so it just sticks up for a little bit longer. And if we come over here and say add AC underscore interaction line trace, and we hit play, we can see our line trace is working. But what's interesting about this is that since it's attached to the player camera manager, it isn't really accessing anything from its owner or getting any information from its owner. So we want to try and do something a little bit different here. So on begin play, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get owner. I'm going to promote this to a variable, plug that in here, and we're going to call this owning actor. And we're setting this here, so now that we always have a reference to whatever the owner is. So when this is attached, it's going to get our owning actor. So then I want to come up here and I want to say get component by class. Not components, but component by class. And then for our component, we're going to look for our camera component. So what's happening is when we first start playing, this specific actor component is going to get the owner, it's going to store it as a reference, then it's going to grab or look for the camera component, and then what we'll do here is instead of dragging right off and storing this as a reference, we're going to check to see if it is valid first, because in case we have something on here, this is attached to something that doesn't exist, or maybe we haven't created the camera component, or the camera component has been accidentally deleted. We want to make sure that it's valid before we do. And if it's valid, then we're going to promote this to a variable. And we're going to call this variable our camera. And if it's not valid, we'll do a print string. And then let's actually do an append. And we can say no camera component found on, we'll do a space. And then we can grab the owner and plug that in here. We'll compile that. We'll make sure this is plugged in. Let's make it red. So that way, when we test it, we won't see anything. But if for some reason our camera here, as we can see, our camera component gets deleted, we get this error message here that tells us that it can't find it. So let's go ahead and add that back. I'm going to make this a little bit longer so that way you can read it. I'm going to make it, we'll set it for 5 seconds. Okay, so that's just to protect us, so that way if we don't see our line trace, we know what's going on. So now that we have this camera reference, we want to come over here and we're going to replace these 3 nodes here. So these 2 specific nodes, I'll show you why we can't use them. So we'll get rid of the player camera manager. We'll drag our camera out. And since this is a different component than the camera manager, it'll want to do this conversion. So it's not going to work. So what we have to do is we have to just get the world location. And we'll delete this. We'll plug this into our start, and then this into our connecting node here. We'll delete that, and we'll say get forward vector. And we'll plug this in here. So now what we are doing is that whatever this component is attached to, it's going to find its owner, and then it's going to look for a camera. So we don't have to worry about the player camera manager. We don't have to worry about any of that. It's dependent on if the actor has a camera or not, which is what we want to do. We want to keep it all self-contained. And that way we can be able to locate what the issue is, because what if there's an issue with the player camera manager and we don't know what's going on? That one is a bigger problem. It could be affecting a lot of other things, but here we'll know, okay, for sure it's not because of the line trace component, because we know that it's finding the local camera. So now if we hit play, we can see it looks pretty much exactly the same of what we were doing before, but it's all self-contained. One of the things to make note is that there is a bug right now in Unreal Engine 5.7, and that's with the naming convention here when you add a component. So you can see down here this character movement component is an actor component, and it's separated by this line. For some reason, Unreal, if you label anything AC or starting with an A, it keeps it up with all of your other components. So what we can do is that we can just delete that and then it puts it down here. Now it is still an AC interaction line trace, which you can see, which is important for us to be able to find later. It's just locally going to be called interaction line trace. Okay, I just corrected the spelling here, so that way it'll make it sense and easy to find. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to see what it is that we're hitting. So that way we can always get a result and know exactly what our line trace is interacting with. So we're going to come back to our interaction line trace. We're going to come down here. And if we hit something, so we'll do this return value, we'll get a branch. So if you hold down B and click, that gives you a branch. If we hit something, we want to do something, but I'm going to split the struct pen first. A lot of people like to do, you can come out here and say break, and then that gives you everything and it's its own separate thing that you can move around. Sometimes I do that. Other times I just like to split the struct pen right here. It does make this node look a lot bigger, but to me, it keeps things organized. So if you want to use break, you can. If you want to use split struct pen, you're more than welcome to as well. Whatever's going to work best for you. But what I'm going to check first is if we are hitting something, then if that's true, then what I want to do is I want to print string, and I just want to get the name of what that thing that I'm hitting is. So I'm going to set this to 0, so that way it just pops up for as long as it's being hit, and then we'll say our hit actor. We'll just plug that in, compile, save. So now we know whatever we're hitting. See, we have SM cylinder, quarter cylinder, our floor, quarter cylinder 3, ramp 6. Awesome. So that means that we're hitting everything. I feel like that's a little long. Let's taper this back a bit. Let's go 300. We can make adjustments to that. We can create a variable for that later. There we go. Perfect. So now we know what we're hitting. Now we want to be able to see if what we hit is something different than what we already have before. Because right now, no matter what we're hitting, we're just displaying the name. So we know that our trace is working. But we only want to change the name now if what we're hitting is something different. So let's go ahead and delete this. And we're going to promote this to a variable, but we're not going to use it quite yet. And let's just go ahead and change this from out hit actor to hit actor. So we're not going to set this yet. What we want to do is we just want to bring this out and we want to compare it. So if our currently hit actor is equal to our hit actor, we'll do another branch here. If that's true, then let's go ahead and do, just for now, we'll do a print string. And this is just so that we can be able to see what's going on. And we're going to build a lot of our functionality in a little bit later. So this is just for debugging purposes. We'll do an append. And we'll say highlight. And then our hit actor. So this is going to look very similar to what we just did. Right now, it's only going to highlight it if the hit actor is the same. So if we go ahead and hit play, now we're not going to get our message. So if it's false, what we need to do is we need to then set our new hit actor. So we'll drag this down. We'll bring this out, and we'll set it. And then we'll hit our print string. So if it's the same, it'll print. If not, it will print it on out. See? Let's make that to 0. So that way we only get the thing. So that means it is currently only highlighting. Now, you might be wondering, why did we do that? Well, it's because we're setting things up so that way we can be able to see things a little bit more clearly. So what we want to do first, here, let's go ahead and unconnect this, because if we select something and we want to highlight something else, we want to unhighlight our previous object. So I'm just going to copy this over. And instead of saying highlight, I'm going to say unhighlight in space. And we'll plug this in and drop that here. Now this I'm going to set to a little bit longer. We'll set this to 3 seconds because it's only going to do it once. We're going to unhighlight whatever the previous object was, and then we want to highlight the new object. And we'll make this a different color so that we can see it. So let's make this pink. Now if we compile and hit save and play, you can see, okay, unhighlight nothing because we weren't selecting anything before. But now if I come to this cube, we see unhighlight small cube 15, highlight ramp 10. If we come here, unhighlight ramp 10, highlight floor. So now we're effectively having our code say we're unhighlighting one thing and then highlighting the other. So that's great. That's everything that we want this to be able to do. And we'll replace these print strings with our code that does that, but for now we know that our logic is sound. So what if we are not hitting anything? So like how we started off, you saw when we first selected something, it said unhighlight something because it had selected nothing first. There wasn't anything there. So if we're not hitting anything, what we want to do is we want to grab our hit actor. And here, let's go ahead and make some room. Let's grab all this. What we'll do here is we take this hit actor and we say convert to a validated get. And what this does is this checks to see if there's anything set to it. If nothing is set to it, then we're just not going to do anything. That means that whatever was there before no longer exists. So we don't need to unhighlight anything because there is nothing to unhighlight. But if there is a valid actor, we'll just grab this here and we'll prop this in. We'll get the display name of our hit actor, and if it's valid, we'll do this. We'll say unhighlight. Let's make this a different color just so that we can be able to see everything. But we're not quite done with this here. What we then want to do is take our hit actor and then set it to nothing because we don't have anything that's in there and we don't want a reference to whatever our hit actor is so that we accidentally do something that we didn't intend to do. So now let's go ahead and take a look. So if we hit play, this first time we shouldn't see anything pop up here because it's not valid. So if we hit play, there's nothing that's there, which is great. So we come down, we still have this unhighlight thing because we select something. So let's fix that here. So we're getting a little cramped here. So let's move this out. It's getting a little messy. So we're going to do this here. What we want to do is we want to then get a validated get again, which is not going to make too much sense right now. It's just because of the way that our code is set up. If it's valid, we're going to come into here because we want to unhighlight it. If it's not valid, we're just going to circumvent that and just go to immediately setting what our hit actor is. So then that way we can then go ahead and hit highlight what we want to highlight. So again, we don't have anything here. Look down, we're highlighting our cylinder. When we change, we're unhighlighting that. And then when we come back up to nothing, it shows, see, we unhighlighted what we had before. Come back down, our quarter cylinder 6 is being highlighted. When we don't come in contact, it's being unhighlighted, which is happening in our code up here. Awesome. So we have our logic down with our placeholders. Now what we want to do is we want to have our channel, instead of hitting everything, we want our channel to go ahead and just hit specific objects. So what we want to do in order to make that happen is over here where it says trace channel, you can see we have visibility and camera. So we want to add a new channel to Unreal for us to be able to search for. So to do that, we're going to come over to Edit. We're going to come to Project Settings. So that's going to bring up our project settings here. And what we want to do is scroll all the way down to our collision under Engine. So if we go collision, we can see we have object channels and then we have trace channels. So what we want to do is add a new trace channel. So we'll say trace channel. We'll call this Interactable. And our default response we want to set to ignore. And that's going to mean every object is going to automatically ignore it. If we set it to block, every object is going to block this, and that's going to create some problems. So we want to specifically select when an object is being blocked versus telling everything to ignore it. So we'll set this to ignore. We'll say accept. And if we come back to our AC interaction line trace, make sure everything is compiled and saved, and we come back here to our trace channel, we should now see our interactable. So if we compile and save that now, what's going to happen is when we hit play, we're not going to see anything. And you actually even see that little dot that happened at the end when we collide with something disappears because we're only searching for interactable items. This line trace is ignoring everything else. So let's make a, let's set an item here. Let's put an item in the world and we'll set it to interactable. So I'm just going to come up to my content folder. We'll come here to level prototyping, mesh. We'll take this cube, we'll bring this cube in, we'll drop it. And then over here in the details, we'll come down to its collision settings, and we'll set this collision preset to custom, and that's going to give us this little drop down, and we can see how everything is being blocked here. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this. So you can see here that the visibility and camera and interactable are all set to block, block, and then ignore. So what we want to do is reverse that. So we want our trace response here to ignore visibility and ignore the camera. So anything that's searching for these will be ignored. You can, if you really want to, leave these on block, but the most important thing that we want to do here is interactable. We want to set this to block because I'm not going to set it right now, and I'm going to show you if we go ahead and take a look and run down here, you're going to see we're not getting any response. So if we set this now to block instead, we're now going to get our response. See, now we're highlighting the cube. If we look away, we've unhighlighted the cube. We've highlighted it, we've unhighlighted it. We've highlighted it, we've unhighlighted it. So perfect. Now the last thing I want us to do here is create just a blueprint, a parent blueprint for our interactable items. Actually, let's bring that back. So we'll leave that there. I'm going to change this back to block, block, and ignore because we're just going to use this as our stage. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to click on blueprint class. I'm just going to make this an actor. I'm going to call it BP underscore interaction parent. And actually, let's put it in a folder. We'll put this in just a, we'll put this just in interactables. We'll move here. So this is our interaction parent. And we don't have anything. We don't have any components. We don't have any meshes. We don't have anything. So we're going to have to build that here. But this isn't going to be what we place into the world. This is going to be what we build any child off of. So first thing I'm going to do is say add. We're going to look for a static mesh. We're going to bring that in. I'm just going to shorten it and call it mesh. I'm going to compile. I'm going to save. And then I'm going to come down here, back down to our collision settings. We're going to set this to custom. And then we are just going to do what we did before and set it to interactable. Now that is everything that we need right now for our parent. let's go ahead and now create some of the things we want to pick up using the asset pack we downloaded earlier. So we'll right click on the interaction parent. We'll say create child blueprint class. And let's go ahead and call this just BP underscore burger, because I think there was a burger there. We'll click on it. We'll open it up. Let's go ahead and dock it in here. Now under mesh, we're just going to come down here to where we see this mesh, and we'll type in burger, and there we see we have our small burger. Now, because this is a child of the interaction, all of our settings should be the same. So if we come down here to our collision settings, we can see, yep, our interactable is set to our block, which is good. Let's go ahead and create another one. So now if we come into our world, and we'll use our pedestal that we used before, let's go ahead and drop our burger on here, our soda, and we'll put our tomato. And let's put these right next to each other. Let's undo this snapping. I don't like it when we have this snapping on. And we'll have this intersect a little bit so that way we can be able to highlight how it unhighlights one and highlights the other. So now if we go ahead and hit play and test, you can see our line trace still doesn't affect anything. Now if we come over here and we look at our cube, which we still have set to block, but we come over here and we look at our tomato, we now say highlight tomato, and we unhighlighted the cube. We come over here, we see soda, we've unhighlighted the tomato and the cube because they're right next to each other. We have our highlight burger, and if we come over here and get our soda because they're touching, say unhighlighted burger and re-highlighted the soda. We can go back and forth. So now we have everything working as intended from our actor component. So I'm going to grab all of this here and this here. And I'm going to collapse this down to a function. I'm just going to call this line trace. So that way it's easier to be able to see. And then anything that we need to do, we can jump in here and be able to edit. So perfect. Awesome. So the next thing we're going to work on is building our interaction onto our object. So we'll be working in the interaction parent in order to be able to do that. But we have to do a few things to set it up first before we can be able to make the highlight. And that does it for this video. In the next one, we're going to create a post-process outline that visually highlights objects when the player looks at them with this line trace. I appreciate all of you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more series like these, and leave a comment for me telling me how you got into game development down below. I'd be interested in hearing your journey. Happy developing.